Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Nancy Drew, a great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, we're literally picking up after the reveal of the last episode, and obviously it's a hard pill to swallow for Nancy, and obviously she's upset with her dad because even when the conversation came up about her mom, she's like, oh, how did Kate feel? Your mom is like, no, Kate, because for her it's a thing of like, you've lied to me my entire life. You've had plenty of time, and I think that's the hard thing for any kid in that position. I think because at first part he's like, well, should it really matter? I mean, they loved you and they took care of you, but like that was your mom, and they never told you like these secrets. I mean, granted, it was to protect you from the Hudsons and stuff like that, sure, because to be fair, like if she was a Hudson, that means they would have brought her into the fold. She would have been corrupted like a Hudson would have, but also at the same time it's a thing of she was also a potential heir to the throne, and so obviously they like an heiress to that family, so obviously they'd probably not want her to. I don't know. I mean, it's interesting to do parallels when you actually think about it, because Bess, her whole situation with the Marvin family and what that can mean for Nancy going through the exact same thing with the Hudson family potentially. That's kind of an interesting thing I never really thought of, but it's understandable why she's taking this so hard, because literally her entire life was a lie. And it's like, the fact is, if I had never discovered this on my own, would you have ever told me? And it seems like they wouldn't. It's like we were respecting Lucy's choice, but then later on you kind of find out from Carson, it's like, but it was also because he was afraid if they did tell her the truth, they'd lose her. But it's just like, it's always that thing of like, hindsight is 2020. Like maybe if you knowing what you know now, would you have done things differently? Maybe not, because it's still like you're respecting Lucy's wishes, but also it's like, doesn't matter who your mom or who your dad is. Like the fact is, we're your parents, but at the same time, Nancy is who Nancy is. She's all about the truth, and so for her to kind of have being lied to, like she doesn't take that well. Consider she's literally been lied to her entire life, caring about these people who, yeah, they're her parents, but it's like my real mom is dead and my real dad is Ryan Hudson. That's a whole, thing to kind of unpackage on its own. So she ends up running away, and we don't find out till later on, but she's staying at Owen's place, which obviously she ain't told Owen, because currently the only person who knows the truth is Ace, and he's not going to put like Nancy's business out there like that. But obviously there was even that scene where like Nick is over at George's place, and her sisters are over like, why isn't he sleeping in George's room? It's like, well, they can't do it while mom's here. I was like, I loved it. I was like, what? Oh, that's crazy. And Nick waking up to find like those two, like her sisters staring at him, and like her mom is like, oh, freeloading, you can kind of get out of here today and stuff like that. It's just like, geez. And George is like, you can kind of ignore whatever she says. She's like, don't ignore me. It's just, and they're kind of like, he's like, no, I'm going to get my own place. But then like some seaweed and gunk comes out of his shoe, and it's like, oh, your sister put a prank on me. But it's like, and then it turns to dust. I was like, what the hell was that about? And then we see slowly but surely it happens to everyone else. And eventually happens to Bess, then Ace, then George herself. And then eventually it happens to Owen. But I was wondering, I was like, oh, why does it happen to Nancy? Because Nancy ends up bringing it up. She's like, oh, she threw up that reed last episode. It's like, right. Well, not last episode, but yesterday. Which also shows you just how fast this whole thing is moving. Once again, it's just like, you literally just got your dad out of prison. The truth has come out about Lucy and everything. And now it's like, oh, like, because she even found out, like, basically, it's like, why bury the dress? Because I guess for Kate, it was like, it was almost like keeping a part of Lucy nearby. I guess she wanted like some part of Nancy's mom to be nearby, like so that way it's not like she's completely gone. So maybe there's some aspect to that. But from the beginning, Carson was like, throw it away, but Kate just hid it in the attic, and that's the reason why he burned it. It's not just because, well, they don't want any ties to the fact is they were there when she died, when Lucy died, but also it would have eventually led to this whole thing coming out, the Hudsons finding out too. So it's like he had his own reasons, especially now that she was gone, like especially because Nancy went looking because Lucy pointed her in the right direction. So it's a whole thing. So Ace ends up tracking Nancy down and kind of explains like, yeah, we need to, we basically are being haunted. Basically, it's a curse from the Iglika. Yeah, but George's mom says that we have to perform a ritual that involves a person at the center of this whole thing, and that being Nancy, the one who kind of, summoned the Iglika. It's like, so it's that, but also at the same time, we have to deal with the fact is that she also has to get a blood relative with her, and it's like the moment that happened, you're like, ooh, that's not going to be the easiest thing. Which, to be fair, it's like, oh, now there's a whole Ryan Hudson situation, because even Ace is like, yeah, I recognize that's kind of a hard situation for you to be in right now. Which, to be fair, you're like, well, it said blood relative, so it didn't mean it had to be your dad. You know, they used up all the samples of like Lucy's, like there was nothing left for blood sample wise, so they couldn't use that. But I was thinking like, well, you could use Ryan's parents, but then like they're not just going to give their blood over to you without explanation. So it's like, all right. So basically, Nancy had to find a roundabout way. I was curious. She's like, I got to go tell my dad. I was like, how are you going to handle this whole situation? There was a whole thing of her talking to him, because he's like, oh, he's going to go to some clinic, and then she's like, why don't you have like your rich people and stuff like that, don't you, it's easy to take care of medicine stuff and all that. He's like, no, I want to look, because Lucy was pregnant, and he looks at something, he's like, oh yeah, like, see, so she probably had the baby. Like for him, it's like, I probably have a child out there, that child is mine. And it's like, because for him it's the thing of like, Lucy died thinking like he didn't care about her, so it's like, for one, this is also a child that's like his and Lucy's. It's like a piece of Lucy still out there, you know. So, and he's even being like, well, you could come along too. He's like, actually, you come along, you do your whole like detective thing of like, you know, helping me get the information I need. And he's like, I'll help you out, whatever you need. So it is a situation of her once again trying to find a roundabout way. So they go to the doctor. The doctor won't give out the information just because of doctor-patient confidentiality, even when the person has passed away. And Ryan's so desperate, but also showing you the Hudson way of him being like, despite everything, like he's kind of going at it very aggressively, like, I'll buy up the hospital and then kind of, then kind of give me the answers that way. It's like, you're not going to believe me. He's like, I'm not going to, it's just, he's so desperate for the answer, because now he knows like there's a child out there that's mine, that's part Lucy's, and he's just so desperate, he's willing to do whatever it takes. And it's like, just give us some time alone. I wonder, did she explain it to the doctor? Probably not. Just going like, okay, I'm gonna need you to wait 5 minutes and walk out of here like disappointed. Like, I guess it'd make it seem like Nancy was able to pump her full of information, like, fine, you got what you wanted. So, but she leaves with Ryan and basically says like, if Lucy did have the baby, the doctor would have known. So suggesting like the baby died with Lucy, which is super effed up in the grand scheme of things. So I'm like, I know you're trying to hide your identity and stuff like that, but if she lets it stay out there that Ryan, hey, your baby might still be out there, he'll keep searching, and eventually maybe everything would lead back to her, and she doesn't want him to know. But even I'm like, why wouldn't you? I didn't even think about it until later on, like the hypocrisy behind Nancy doing that until later on when they pointed out, but I'll get to that soon enough. But I'm like, that's kind of messed up. I get why you're doing it, but for Ryan, the fact of the matter is he understands, like, because like Nancy had asked him, it's like, oh, like, if you were back when you were 18, would you have been a good father? He was like, oh no, I was an idiot, I was selfish, I was self-centered, like I was like, the fact of the matter is, I would not know what it was like to be a good parent, considering the parents I had growing up. He's like, I wouldn't have been, good. But then, like, Nancy started to ask certain questions, like, because she's trying to gauge, like, what things would have been like with him as her dad and everything. But then like the curse is kind of hitting her, like her hair's kind of falling out and she's kind of choking, so they pull over and she's kind of freaking out, like, okay, what's going on? And she's like, okay, so it's like, I need your help with this whole ritual. It's how we got Lucy's bone. It's like, I'm not going to explain the ins and outs of it, but we need your help. He's like, why? And it's like, well, okay, I'll help out. But, I mean, if we do wait, that means Owen's going to die. And she's like, wait, what? Because at first she was thankful. She's like, thanks, Ryan. And then he says that. She's like, wait, what? He's like, well, yeah, he's my competitor and stuff like that. And the way he kind of smug to me one time, and she's like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. She's like, this isn't the time to joke. He's like, I'm serious. And which is like, I was like, oh, Ryan, you said the worst possible thing. That Hudson came out of you a little bit just then. And basically it pissed Nancy off. And in this moment, we find out why she didn't tell him everything. Because it's like, the fact of the matter is, you hid your relationship with Lucy. You've basically been the person that you have been. You cheated on your wife. And he was like, that marriage was out of like, a business situation. It was kind of like his family situation, putting him and Tiffany together. But also it's like, you're dating a teenager. And I was like, ooh, right. The whole him and George thing. It's like, yeah, he was cheating on her with one of your friends, which is weird to think. It's like your biological dad was sleeping with one of your friends. That, and I loved it. They do bring that up later on, but I was like, ooh, it's like, yeah, I can see why you wouldn't want him to know, because it's just kind of a thing of like, because you don't even want to admit it. You don't want to acknowledge the fact that you're related, because it's like, because along with having him as your dad comes all his baggage and all that stuff, and it's just for her, it's just like her reality's kind of coming unraveled a little bit, and so she's kind of taking it out on him, and like all the things that make him a terrible person, and it's just. But I think it's it's sad because it's like people will never change if you don't give them a chance. Like, you don't know what kind of person he could be. He could be, you never know unless you present him the opportunity to be a father, you don't know what kind of person he could be. He could change. I mean, we've seen it over the course of the series that he has changed, but at the same time, once again, you still see aspects of that Hudson. And so because of that, Ryan was like, you know what? I think you'll find your own way home. And he just leaves Nancy behind when she's like, Ryan, because it's like, damn it, I needed your help because not just me, everyone is counting on this because everyone else is potentially going to die because of all this. At the same time, there's the whole situation with, I love everyone kind of making out and then like Ace walking in on Lisbeth and Bess making out. Side note, I came across the actress who plays Lisbeth's filmography recently. I forgot what I went through many different pages and I came across her. She was in something and I can't remember what it was. I was like, oh, I recognize her from that. I didn't recognize it. I want to say it might have been The Magicians, maybe. I think I might be confusing it with a different actress. I don't remember. I have to look into it afterwards. But I was like, I looked at her filmography. It's like, oh, I know you from this certain thing because I watched a certain thing. But regardless, I was like, yeah. In retrospect, I was like, oh, I should have known. I do want to say it is The Magicians, but like I said, I could be wrong. I think it was something where she had like longer hair. I want to say because her hair isn't short like it is as it is now. Like, so that's why I think might be kind of throwing. Regardless, it was going on a tangent and all that, but I love Ace having to sneak by him to get into his locker and everything. And obviously, it's like, oh, like Aunt Diana's birthday party, and you have Bess is the one throwing it and everything. It's like, oh, that's awesome and everything. But at the same time, it's like, Owen kind of dashes at a little bit because she wants to bring Elizabeth and everything, but it's like, yeah, bringing her is not going to be the best considering she is a officer who has a tendency to look into the dirt of very rich and powerful families, and it's like, and Diane's not going to be too keen about that, and obviously, Bess tries to kind of work around it by being like, yeah, I can't have a +1. Elizabeth's like, you're lying. That's one thing I love about you is the fact that you're a terrible liar. It's like, it's because of my situation, and it's like, right. But she's like, but we could show up together. Like, but for Bess, she's in this complicated thing of like, I just found this family. I've been welcomed into it, but I don't want to lose you either. But Elizabeth was like, we can walk in together. If you decide to change your mind, just like call me up. Sadly, she doesn't end up doing that. We see later on she ends up going to the party, in particular with Ace, because she needs someone there to kind of help and support her. But she kind of pseudo goes by herself. But at the same time, like George and Nick, I love that they're looking at stuff about the curse and everything, and she touches his leg, and I was like, oh, and they look at each other, proceed making out and stuff. Well, we got to take this slow. Yeah, take it slow. A little more kissing, and then Bess walks in, and she's like, yeah, you having your, sorry to interrupt your owners meeting, and George is like, okay, fine, and it's like, yeah, we were doing this thing, and it's like, she's like, yeah, you were doing that, looking for that or working on that with your tongues in each other's mouths. So it's just like I said, I just love that there's like a lot of walking in on people thing. But obviously Nancy having to explain, hey, my dad's not going to come through with this. I'm sorry, I've got to find some other way. Nick and George go to Carson. Is like, I know about this. He's like, I don't understand half the shit that's coming out your mouth. Wait, but you've talked to Nancy today. They're like, wait, what? And so I was like, dude, I was like, all the lies they're circulating. So, but I thought it was interesting. Obviously, Bess gets introduced to more of her family, and I think we got a better picture of Aunt Diana this episode of just how for one, petty and vicious, and it seems like and I think it's kind of like that's the whole thing of like the rich and powerful families, how duplicitous they can be. It's like we see that, hey, the Hudsons, they wear their duplicity like a badge of honor. The moment like the Marvins, it seemed like they try to hide it, because it was like, what was her cousin's name? It's like, oh yeah, you take her spot, and it's like, I think she hates me. It's like, no, basically at her wedding during her speech, she put junior members of the Marvin family before thanking Aunt Diana, and that's what she was. I was like, wow, you were super petty. She brought you up, but she put other people before you. It's like, no, I go first. It's like, if they were other senior members of the family, sure, but they were junior members, younger members, and I should have come first in the hierarchy. I'm like, ugh. Someone's kind of very full of themselves, but it's all about like positioning and hierarchy and stuff like that in the family. And it's like, oh, that's not good. So kind of right there in that moment, you're like, oh, this is probably not the best family you want to join, Bess. It'd probably bring out the worst side of yourself. So while all that's happening, Ryan ended up finding a locket of, Nancy's in his car, and I was like, what's this going to connect to? He opens it, sees her baby picture. Then he opens up like a picture of like Lucy when she was a baby, and like they look the same. And he confronts her about it. He's like, why do you look like twins? And he starts breaking down stuff. He's like, yeah, the fact is you got this look on your face when you like, Lucy was very smart too. Like when she was looking at stuff, she figured stuff like she had that look like you too. And it's like, and he's trying to figure it all out. He's like, tell me the truth, Nancy. I won't help you with any of this unless you tell me the truth. And she goes like, Lucy did have the baby. She gave the baby to Carson and Kate to look after. Gave me to them. And he's like, wait, what? But how? And so obviously for him, it's like, but why didn't you tell me anything? For him, and once again, this is where I was just talking about the hypocrisy. Like in this moment, it's like, but you lied to me. You didn't tell me the truth. Like once again, it's like she was now in her dad and mom's shoes of like, oh, you had an opportunity to tell me the truth, but you didn't. And it's like, it's like if you didn't need my help, would you have even said anything to me? She's like, I wish I didn't need your help. And he was like, there's at least one honest thing for me. I was like, that sucks. It's also because like you just found out you have a daughter, you find out it's Nancy, and basically she hates your guts, and the fact of the matter is, and you know that's the truth. It's a complicated family mess. So goes, meets up with the others, and they're like, hey, Ryan's here. Why the hell is he here? Carson's, but she's like, we gotta, you're not needed, so go. They start the ritual and everything. It's like, we got all we needed. He's needed. And it's like, oh, like he's a relative and stuff like that. And like, can you just read the thing? And George is kind of looking like, wait, what? Ace, already knowing all this, just grabs it. He's like, all right, because he's like, and Nancy doesn't want to explain this right now, but they proceed to do the ritual and everything. And because and I like the way the ritual's supposed to work. Basically, their blood mixes together because it's basically honing in on Nancy's blood. And if it can't find her blood, especially if it mixes with Ryan, it's basically like it pollutes her DNA to a certain extent, or rather her blood. So if it can't find her by her blood, it can't find the others either. So that was kind of supposed to be the way of breaking it. But then it's like, why is this? What's happening? Are you two related? It's like Lucy Stable had a baby with Ryan, and that baby was me, and everyone else is like, what? The bomb gets dropped on everybody. I even love later on. It's like, oh my God, yeah, Lucy was Nancy's mom, and Ryan is her dad, and then Bess had to be the one to say it, and George slept with Nancy's dad, and then Nick was like, no, come on, and George turns and walks away. It's just like, yeah, that's I think the appropriate response. But obviously for Ryan, he's like, hey, so are you okay? Like, he's like, yeah, I hope that worked out and everything. But, oh, do you want to grab a coffee or something? She's like, it's too soon for me. I can't do this right now. And he's like, yeah, me neither. And obviously for Carson, he's trying to explain everything. He's like, we did it because like the family was dangerous. She said the Hudsons were dangerous. That included you. And he was like, the fact of the matter is Lucy died thinking I abandoned her. The fact of the matter is I would have protected Nancy, but you took that away from me, that opportunity to raise her, to look after her. Like, once again, he could have risen to the occasion. Who knows who Ryan would have been, if things had worked out differently, if he had, like, it might have been a thing of he might have put his selfish self away. I mean, who knows? Maybe at the time, maybe he would have tried to give her away for adoption because, like, oh, I'm not good enough. But especially, like, with Lucy being dead, who knows? Maybe he would have stepped up. But it's like, we'll never know now because you took that chance away from me, that opportunity away from me, and he can never get that back. That's like, even like him and Nancy already have an uphill battle already, just because there's like 19 years of her not being in his life, her already having a certain opinion of him and everything. And it's like that time he can never get that back. Once again, it's like Nancy is it's an element of Lucy, it still lets him, her being around is like having a piece of Lucy still around. But and obviously it's like she knows, but she's planning on going to like New York with Owen, because it's like, you don't have to move out of the house, Dad. I need to be somewhere where you're not. And it's just, like I said, it's sad because it's like at the same time, it's like, Carson and Kate loved you, regardless of how you're feeling right now. Obviously you're upset. You have every right to be, but it's like, they loved you, and so it's like, it's that thing of like, you're almost like, get over it. But at the same time, it's like, who am I to tell you to get over how you're feeling? You have every right to feel the way you do because you've been lied to and it hurts, because, like I said, at any point in time, they could have told you the truth, because especially knowing who you are. But the fact is, they actively went out of their way to hide it. At any point in this investigation, Carson could have been like, okay, here's the truth. But he kept lying and lying and lying. And I guess when you lie for so long, it just, once again, he's all like, if he told Nancy the truth, maybe he'd lose her, so there's that. But then there's the whole thing with, like, really quickly with Bess, where it's like, oh, you should continue a relationship with Elizabeth, because this way it basically have an insider, in case, like, oh, the cops are ever looking into our family, Elizabeth can give us a heads up type of thing. And it's like, now she doesn't want to mix pleasure and business, but, like, Aunt Diana's kind of pushing more so, like, oh yeah, think of it as kind of your birthday present to me. And it's like, Jesus, it's like, once again, now they want you to jeopardize your relationship because it could benefit the family and stuff like that. So that's why I'm like, the family's not a good fit. Like, I think now surely she's going to start seeing, like, the darker side of the family. Hell, even Owen was like, yeah, there's some people in this family he's trying to avoid. It's like, let's get out of here. Moment Aunt Diana blows out the candles, I'm ghost, because he's like, I hope you're okay with me not introducing you to the entire family. And Aunt was like, yeah, kind of had enough of, like, the family situations this episode. But sadly, it turns out that the ritual to reverse it did not work. Everyone's still getting signs from the, like, the whole curse and everything. But then, like, Nancy starts thinking, well, we've been coming at this from the perspective of it's not a human. What if the Aglica was a human? Because what she's been seeing, like, the whole, like, because at one point, like, what was it? Nick was drowning at one point. Ace was bound by rope, his hands and his feet. Obviously, like, the maggots that Bess has been seeing, it's on fruit, but then at one point she sees it on her arm, and obviously all the little crab things that George has been seeing. So that's all, like, stuff that someone who was, like, who was bound and was choking and dying, had their hair cut and stuff like that, potentially, or have shorter hair, whatever the case may be, was cast out to sea and stuff like that and killed like that. And so this is kind of like them reenacting their death. It's like a death echo, and everyone else is kind of having to relive it to a certain extent. So I'm like, so now the question becomes, like, well, who's the human person? I would assume it would have some, since they went after Owen, since he was kind of the price, I'm assuming it has something to do with the Marvin family. It's kind of like they have a lot of dark secrets and stuff like that, that they want to keep buried. So that's why I'm like, because obviously Owen's kind of hinted towards that in the past too, where he was just like, yeah, I kind of don't want to be looking through our history. And I think it was like, I want to say it was Bess that was like, what'd you say? He was like, nothing. Like, it was a couple episodes back, that whole thing had happened, but he quickly changed the subject. But they go to try and find Owen, and they find him in a bathtub with a wound. Now, I don't know if he's dead. I don't think he is. It's probably just a thing of, like, he got heavily wounded and he's there. The big question then becomes, okay, so is this the Aglica doing this to him? Did the Aglica do this by, like, pointing some human, like, basically possessing a human, pointing them in a direction and hurting him like that? Because everyone else got signs of it. He's the only one that got hurt. So maybe that's supposed to be a sign in itself. But to be fair, Bess is a Marvin as well, but he's a male Marvin. So there's a difference there. So maybe it's kind of similar to Charmed, how Jordan has to suffer the ramifications of his ancestor. Like, it's probably something similar to that. So that's what I'm thinking. Because essentially it's like, they did the right medicine, as Victoria, George's mom had said, you did the right medicine for the wrong thing. And if anything, you pissed the Aglica off. That's why these things are hitting you even harder now. But my thing is, like, that was my thoughts. And I was like, so at the very least, or could it just simply be the timing of, like, this whole Aglica thing is happening, and then just someone with a personal vendetta against Owen stabbed him or left him in the bathtub or tried to kill him. There's a whole house full of suspects potentially, because it might be connected to, like, it just, the timing just plays out that way. Maybe it's like the Aglica kind of created this, like, bad luck atmosphere, and he just happened to kind of it kind of set things in motion on a cosmic level or a more supernatural level, but it was someone human that kind of did it because maybe it kind of fed off someone's anger towards Owen, which obviously, like, he wanted to avoid certain people in his family. So the Marvins, and even Diana said, kind of, you have to be a little cutthroat in his family. So I'm assuming it had to be a Marvin. And like I said, it's a family reunion. So, like, so there's a long list of potential suspects. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see ultimately where all that ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.